All right, good afternoon, everybody. At this time, I would like to call this meeting to order. Individuals wishing to address the city council are requested to complete a speaker card. They're in the back and over here. And please observe a 3-minute limit for communications, and once called upon to speak, speak your name and city of residence. So I think we're gonna jump right into that. So going into communications from the public, this portion of the agenda is intended for general public comment on items within the council's jurisdiction. Oh. J-Dog says we have to do the Pledge of Allegiance. So if you can all rise, we will do that. Jacob, will you lead us?
Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible.
All right, let me start this over. Communications from the public. This is an agenda item intended for general public comment on items within the council's jurisdiction that are not listed elsewhere on the agenda. If it's on the agenda and it's the trails thing, just wait till that issue comes up. And you got 3 minutes. Once called upon to speak, state your name and city for the residents. Ms. Edwards, are there any?
Mayor, we do not have any speaker cards for communication from the public.
All right, we're humming along. Up next is the great Donna Finch to present the Trails Master Plan Review, and it's all yours.
Thank you, Mayor. Good afternoon, Mayor and members of the City Council. Our department is happy to be here again to present a revised draft of the Trails Master Plan for your review and consideration today. As you know, we had originally presented the Trails Master Plan back to you in August of 2023, and the general direction that we heard from the council at that time is that the plan needed a little bit more work to help reorganize it, to provide clear recommendations for projects that can be implemented over the next 10-year period, along with some policies that can go along with those projects. So for the last several months, our staff has been working very diligently to dig into the plan, make some revisions. We've reorganized the plan, revised several sections to remove redundancies, streamlined the body of the plan to focus on the key recommendations and the future trail projects, and moved a lot of the detail that was previously in the body of the plan over to the appendices. So it's there as reference material if anybody wants to review it, but the plan itself is really focusing on those key recommendations that we are providing for you today. So once this plan was revised, our department held some additional working sessions and meetings with the Parks and Rec Commission. We dove deep into the details of the plan and got feedback on key components of the plan, including the policies, the trail alignments, the prioritization of projects, and the development of trails along flood control channels. Staff also did additional public outreach to share the revised plan with the community. We posted the plan on social media, attended some of the city events to share information about the plan, as well as did a pop-up booth over at the Skyline Trailhead to collect input from our trail users. So all of this feedback that we've received from both the commission along with the community has been incorporated into the revised plan that you have before you today. And I'm pleased to say that the Parks and Rec Commission recommended approval by the City Council of the plan at their January 9th meeting. So with that, I would like to go ahead and reintroduce Tim Bevins from Alta Planning and Design to present our revised plan for you today. And after his presentation, we will be happy to hear your feedback.
Good evening. Thank you, Ms. Finch, and good afternoon. So the ask today is to provide feedback and direction as we look at the revised draft. And so Ms. Finch just provided a pretty thorough review of what we've done since we last gathered, but I think the principal effort here was to streamline and organize and get this plan easier to get your arms around and take away high-level recommendations, whereas the details are still available should someone want to dig in. So the plan structure now has been pared down. We have an executive summary, the purpose and goals. Of course, we go into a plan and trail review of previous trails, previous planning efforts. We conducted a needs analysis, which is analyzing proximity to trails for residents, where that proximity to trails aligns with people's income and exposure to air toxins, things of that nature. So are we able to provide more trails to disadvantaged community members? Are we able to provide trails to everyone that lives in the city? Those are the sorts of things that are included in the needs analysis. There's the community input that Ms. Finch just covered that is summarized within the document, and we also look to best practices from neighboring cities or like cities. Then we provide recommendations for policies, funding, and trails as well. So the introduction, or what is the plan all about? It's to guide the development of improvement of trails in the system of Corona, and also find ways to provide opportunities to connect to the Cleveland National Forest, Prado Dam area, Chino Hill State Park, and the surrounding trail opportunities that in many of your constituents' minds are part of Corona's trail network, but may not actually be within city boundaries. So these are the goals from the plan. I won't read all of them. It's quite lofty, and I think that I want to underscore the reason why they are quite lofty is because this is the city's first Trails Master Plan. So it's in order for us to establish goals and vision and baseline so that we have something to build upon in the years and decades to come. So I'll highlight the process and the development that got us to the plan now. So the first effort that brought us to today was conducted in 2019. It was called the Trails Master Inventory. And in this effort, the city did a public outreach effort to talk with members of your community, as well as an internal GIS review of as many trails as possible within city boundaries. Building upon this, in 2021, the first phase of this planning effort was developed, which highlighted potential trail alignments all throughout the city. It also had its own round of engagement as well, and developed different trail typologies. So what types of trails would fit in different areas of the city. And then Trails Plan Phase 2, this one, what's in front of you, is to refine and prioritize what was included in Trails Plan Phase 1, as well as inform it with more discussions with city staff and community members. So when we look at the current state of trails in the city of Corona when this effort began, there are very few city-recognized official trails within city boundaries, but there are an abundance of trails nearby, particularly, as we all know, within the Cleveland National Forest. And I think that this is important to highlight for two reasons. The first, which will come up in just a few slides, is a kind of a pull-out of our survey responses. And many, the responses belie people's thoughts that there are trails within the city, and there are not that many. The other one that this belies is also that when the alignments were developed in the Phase 1 Trails Master Plan, the city is built out. It's not a space with miles and miles or acres and acres of open space. So one needs to be opportunistic and explore the interstitial spaces within the city fabric to find opportunities to fit more trails. How about this? Okay. So the city hosted a dedicated trails website. It's still active, trails.coronaca.gov. We had updates about the master plan process. This is also where we hosted photos and our survey and pointed people towards. So when we distributed collateral in the field, such as the Hagador cleanup event that occurred in March of last year, this is where people were pointed towards. So, on that survey that was conducted in the spring of 2022, we had over 900 survey responses. And when we asked folks how they engage or how often they use hiking within the city, the majority of responses said that it was about 10 times per year, and most had visited within the past month or perhaps past week. But what that says when we juxtapose that with that map of existing trails within the city is that presumably many of these responses, folks may have been thinking about a trail that technically was on Cleveland National Forest property. A few other themes that came out of that survey, access is a big one. So wayfinding, easier parking, zones for bikes versus hikers, all of that kind of rolls into access. So access, of course, is the literal cut in the gate to be able to get to a trail, but it's more than that. It's the ease of finding a trail and the ability to park within a reasonable distance to then get on the trail. Or if one is going by foot or by bike, what does that look like? And are they able to safely access a trail? So these are the sorts of things that are borne out by the comments that we see here reflected in the community survey responses. In addition to guidance by staff, of course, the plan was informed by the general public with the surveys, the project website, series of e-blasts and social media posts, with the Trails Working Group, which I'll get to in the next slide, but this was a body as recommended by the Parks and Recreation Commission. We had 6 meetings, so that was another layer of stakeholder engagement. We also worked and coordinated with the Parks and Recreation Commission. In addition to having one-on-one meetings with each of the commissioners, we also had multiple presentations and updates. And then, of course, to this body, we've had 2 past meetings as well as a study session. The Trails Working Group was really the star and the special blend for this project. It was really, really helpful. The Trails Working Group was comprised of trail users in the city from a variety of backgrounds and user types, from someone concerned about walking their dog to someone concerned about commuting on a bicycle to recreational mountain biking. So we had a lot of people in the room. We had 6 meetings, 15 to 30 people or so, 2+ hours each, graciously hosted upstairs in the city council's office meeting room, which was really helpful. And we worked through a lot of challenges, kind of highlighting some of those notes that I mentioned earlier, particularly about challenges getting to the Cleveland National Forest and what those bureaucratic overlays look like, how we might be able to improve the trailheads themselves that are on city property, and all the rest listed above. So we looked at best practices from other agencies. From like cities, we worked with the city to find some cities that had interesting things to say or programs in place about parking, fees, volunteer cleanup, signage, everything under the sun. Altadena in particular was one that we point out within the plan. I apologize, excuse me, because it is a community that nestles up against foothills and has small nondescript access points into those trails. As you recall, again, from the existing trails map, there are few open spaces throughout the city. So we look to flood control channels and other interstitial spaces to see if we can find opportunistic alignments for trails. And of course, this is informed by 2 goals from the general plan, CE 5.7 and PR 6.3, both of which direct the city to look to those spaces to build bicycle, hiking, and trail facilities throughout. So when we look at flood control trails, the expression of that design is tied up with the channel geometry, the right-of-way, the shoulder width on either side of the trail, what that looks like. One of our Trails Working Group meetings was specifically focused with Riverside County Flood Control and district to work through their permitting process, what that looks like, what about maintenance, what about safety, everything else under the sun. And again, just another potpourri of images of flood control channel trails. So the specific design and expression, of course, is going to depend on the context and what you hear from your community. So right now we're at the planning stage, and then we go into feasibility, which would be specific design, engineering, and community engagement. And all of that is where we would start to say, okay, there might be concerns about someone falling into the water, so how do we address that? There might be concerns about crime, so how do we address that? So all those sorts of things are what then turn into the design that you're seeing here, from the specificity of the fencing to how high the walls are with neighboring buildings and such. So some of the recommendations in the plan itself. So first thing we do is get into policies. So the city has not historically required developers to maintain trails or maintain trail access, particularly along its western edge with the Cleveland National Forest, which is part of what this plan is attempting to address, is to find opportunities to still maintain access. So one of the policy recommendations is indeed to do just that, is to work with developers to find opportunities to maintain access. So when new development comes along, working with developers to either maintain access as articulated within this plan or find some other strategy to do so. A full list of the policy recommendations can be found on pages 26 and 27. And the program recommendations look towards funding, partnerships, support facilities, which is parking, working with new developers to maintain access, as I just articulated, and of course, historical designations, interpretive elements, moving just beyond trail so that it becomes something part of the city, part of the city fabric. I will briefly flip through these. These are from the Trails Master Plan inventory, or Trails Master Plan Phase 1, I should say. It identified 5 different trail typologies throughout the city. So these are ideal widths and ideal design standards. Of course, during design and engineering and feasibility phase, all of this would be pushed onto specific sections of roadway or specific sections of flood control or specific sections of open land or trail. And that's where the actual design of the product that will go in, the trail that will go in, will be developed. But all that to say, there are 5 general standards. So there's a multi-use path, which is a lot more of an urban context. There's a recreational path. This is not too dissimilar from what you see along Foothill right in front of the Santa Ana River Trail. There's multi-use trail. So this is a paved path, usually, that starts to run along those areas like flood control channels, things like that. There are recreational trails. This typology specifically was looking towards areas throughout the city that are sometimes between commercial buildings, structures like that there is space in between them, but it's quite tight and limited, so how you can control for safety. And then the nature trails themselves. So when you get into open space, what does that look like? What are the minimum widths and things like that? The plan also highlights really briefly just the 6 minimum standards elements that the city is working to bring to all city-maintained trailheads and would like to have at each of the trails that are proposed within the plan. So bike racks, maintenance stands, water fountains, trash, all the greatest hits that you would expect, making sure that those are in fact captured at each of the trailheads. As we saw in the survey responses, wayfinding, access, knowing where to go, knowing where to park, it starts to come out. And a signage program, a comprehensive one, can really start to speak to this. One shouldn't have to stress about getting to the trail, right? So if we're able to really easily direct someone to park or to where to go or where is legal access, that's something that came out in our Trails Working Group conversations as well. Is not necessarily that people are seeking to trespass, is that they don't know where they may go. And so a comprehensive signage wayfinding program could help with that as well. The plan provides some guidance on routine maintenance from day-to-day tasks like cleanup and litter removal, looking for graffiti, addressing that, to grooming trails and dealing with things after rainfall and other significant events. The plan highlights potential funding sources. Many of these projects, specifically the ones within city limits, are really well positioned for Caltrans Active Transportation Program. Cycle 7 is slated to be released in March, and many of these projects are really good opportunities for pursuing funding. As you all know, many of these types of facilities, both on-street and off-street, are funded in part or in whole by competitive state and federal dollars. The plan also looks to using, again, in this theme of being opportunistic, where are there opportunities to purchase more parking near some of the other trailheads, which perhaps may alleviate some of the pressures on the Santa Ana River, on Skyline Drive, for example. We also look to the landscape maintenance district that are within city purview. You already have staff going out there. There may even be a few parking locations. And using those areas, perhaps with the signage, which I just mentioned a slide ago, these are the sorts of things that we're starting to weave together throughout the plan to create the network whole cloth within the city. From a marketing perspective, the city would be well served. There is information on the project or on the city website, but relatively straightforward to implement. Could even point to outside data sources or outside trail websites, even the Cleveland National Forest websites. But a marketing push with many of the materials created as a result of these three plans combined together would go a long way to help popularize some of the trails and also help folks figure out where they may be able to park or get legal access to the trailheads. We look to collaboration for really this is the goal here with the plan and as articulated even in the RFP is to create kind of a seamless experience for folks getting to a trail, getting between trails, a trail user who's walking a dog on a trail that's right behind their house or 2 minutes away should have that same, like that luxury should be afforded to someone that also might need to ride a bicycle to get to that trail. So how are we able to solve for that? And that's coordinating within the city. So making sure that the bicycle network links up with the trail network so that one may have a seamless ride. You know, from the end user perspective, we want to make it intuitive, low stress, seamless. People don't need to think about parking. People don't need to think about how, if I want to go on a bicycle ride, am I safe to ride my bicycle to that trail? So the plan recommends those sorts of collaborations both within the city as well as with outside jurisdictions. So with all of those trails and all of the input that we received from all the things I just highlighted, we created a 4 criteria prioritization methodology to look to a prism to filter all the potential trails from all the previous efforts. And, you know, it looks to feasibility, can you build it? It looks to who is it serving? How many people is it serving? The type of that trail, the input from the city, has it been recommended or supported by the Trails Working Group? All that prioritization criteria was run against every single trail within the plan. And each of them are assigned a score, and those are included within the appendix. But the plan includes a 10-year implementation plan, which puts together those that are funded within the city's capital improvements plan, as well as those that would be well-positioned for pursuing competitive dollars, and kind of ranks them in order to help achieve that vision that is articulated in this map. So as I said, there are a lot of trails in here and they are quite ambitious. And so that's what the point of the prioritization methodology is to put things in front of you all as well as city staff to then consider which ones are the best to pursue and to get into the feasibility study and design. We wrap up the plan with appendices. As I believe I mentioned each of these, but the one that I have not mentioned would be the Big 5 trails. So the Big 5 are the Santa Ana River Trail, Skyline Trail, Fresno Trail, Bedford Motorway, and Eagle Road, most of which are at the city's periphery. And so those are the 5 that were often a subject of conversation with the Trails Working Group, and those are the areas that the plan highlights the challenges getting to those and what the potential opportunities that the city may explore for connecting to them could be. So with that, I will say, well, we ask that the city discuss and provide feedback, and I look forward to your questions. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, guys, do you want to do council comments or public comments first? Public comments first? Okay, Sylvia, are there any speaker cards on this subject?
Mayor, yes, we have 16 speaker cards for this item. We also received written correspondence. We received 22 emails in opposition of the proposed item and 7 in support. And those written comments have been provided to the council and will be part of the meeting minutes.
Thank you, Sylvia. If we could, I'm guessing this is a first for a few of you in this room. If we could just line up over here and then just take turns at the podium for 3 minutes each.
My name's Nick DeJohn-Batiste. I've lived in this city for 37 years. And I want to know a couple of things. Why the short notice? Is it because we can't get to here and can't have the whole room filled with all the neighbors that don't want this trail running behind their house? I heard this gentleman over here say 4 times, we talked to the community. This is the community. This was never given to us until the last minute. That's wrong. How can you guys do that to us? You're going to open up the Oak Street channel to all the graffiti that's in our neighborhood? We have the Oak Street channel on Citron has a bridge that goes across from it. And it's the kids on the other side walk through our neighborhood to get to Rainy. Our whole streets are filled with different colors of paint from the wall that you guys have to come every week and paint over it. Why do we want to have open that up? Who's going to protect my house that faces that Oak Street channel when someone breaks into my house? I want to know, you're going to put a 15-foot wall like everybody else does? Or a 5-foot chain link fence that's not going to stop anybody? We don't want this trail. It's wrong.
I agree. My name's John Mead. I didn't get a letter. My daughter and son-in-law did. They live on Via Pacifica. They have a channel behind them. And they have some issues they wanted to address. A lot of them probably be repetitious, you know. This thing was started in 2020. Well, it's 4 years ago, and they're just hearing about it. And they lived in their house for 24 years. Skyline was there, and then the houses were built. The people that bought those homes knew what they were getting. I myself have a storm channel behind my house on Raymore. And the fence looking over from my property is over 6 feet. But from the channel side, you can stand on your tiptoes and look right over it. I'm only 5'10". So, and I've had issues over the years. People walking in the back, looking over the fence, seeing what you have that maybe they can steal. With all these hikers, all these bikers, who knows how many of those are going to be criminals looking for something to steal. Like the gentleman just talked, my son-in-law, daughter, they would be here, except she's a school teacher. She don't get home from school till 5 o'clock. You set this meeting at 3 o'clock on Wednesday when very few people can come. I'm fortunate I'm retired. I can get here. Franklin Elementary School is right up from where they live, right by that channel. A lot of people drop their little ones off to school and pick them up on the backside of the school, right by the channel. These little ones are going to be mixing in with these hikers and runners. It's a risk. And another thing is that has a study been done on how it's going to affect home values? I know if I were looking for a home in Corona and they had a trail right behind my block wall, I wouldn't want it. So I would assume if a study's done on this, home values will go down. Thank you.
Richard Hunter. I've been a resident of Corona since 1969. I have 2 properties that are affected by this trail. Okay, first off, I'm opposed to Circuit Number 3 trail. The number 1 reason is the flood control channels are a hazard. That's why they're currently fenced and Skyline is currently blocked at the Foothill Bridge. The sidewalks from 6th Street to Skyline Drive are adequate. They work. Okay, that's why they're there. Okay, also, walking trails, police and emergency personnel have limited access to the existing trails in the event of an emergency or crime. City and county, my number 4 reason is that the city and county funding disputes have made the maintenance of existing trails checkered at best. Okay, and that's what I have to say today. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Dina Lepe. I do not live in the area that the trails are going to be built. However, I have lots of family and friends that do, and they obviously can't be here today at 3 o'clock, but I just wanted to let you know my experience living behind a walking park. There's a lack of privacy to all the homes. There's noise at all hours with people, dogs, teenagers drinking, getting high, summer, spring, fall. It's loud. These people don't realize that there's residents living here, and that there's a level of expectation of when you buy a home, if you already know that one's there, there's a level of expectation, you know it's going to be a little noisy. But putting one in after one's been living there or purchased there, it's they're going to move. They're going to want to move. It's miserable. Parking. I understand there may be parking lots. That's great. They charge fees. Fantastic. However, nobody wants to pay fees. So they're going to park in the residence areas. And we all know from Skyline, there's a hot mess there with break-ins. It's going to bring break-ins to the residential areas. It's going to bring potential break-ins to homes. What about law enforcement? Are they going to have a special team that kind of goes through the trails on their little bikes or something? What are they going to do to protect the people who are walking from, criminals? If I could do it all over again, I would not have bought the house that we bought behind a park, for sure. Most people have a general lack of respect for neighbors that they're walking behind. They just don't realize that people can hear them and how loud they are. There's always a problem with urine, feces, not just from dogs, but from people when they start going up these trails. I know they mentioned restrooms, but who wants to walk however long to go? They're just going to go where they go. It's nature. That's what they're going to do. When people go up there and they eat, they leave their food out. They leave wrappers out. It brings animals. It brings rats. I can't tell you how many times in the park behind our house that there's been rats that I've seen crawling on the fence. It's gross. So I don't think it's appropriate to put walking trails behind already existing homes. They should be in other areas where there are not homes, so people can live peacefully. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Dwight. I live over a border in Ontario. I am a full fan of trail systems throughout cities. There's multiple cities, new and old, that have them. I was a part of the Trails Working Group. I've been asking previous staff, previous council about how we could open and initiate some trail systems in the city since about 2010. I've had children on cross-country teams that I would see running day in and day out on busy streets. I myself kind of stopped running. I ride my bike more. I'm left to be able to just ride on a city street through the danger of that, through all the other issues that come with it. Just my breathing, sometimes it's funny to throw things at cyclists. I mean, there's all kinds of bad things that happen. But the positive things, as I ride through different communities on my bike, I go through channels that have been completely renovated. I grew up in La Habra. Coyote Creek was an area that was completely closed off of Imperial and Beach Boulevard. And that was recently opened. And my friends that still live there, they love it, they live by it, they enjoy it. Brea has opened it's called Tracks on Brea. I was over there 2 years ago. I was so shocked how it changed by the improvement of it. I even texted a picture of it to Jim. It used to be just a dump, literally a dump. I would ride down there. I would run down there. It was horrible shape. It goes through commercial. It goes through industrial. It goes through a historical area. It goes through new houses. It goes through a golf course. Anywhere you go with people, there's remnants of us, of all of us. We'll leave trash, we'll leave noise, but at this point, recreation is for everybody. It's not intended just for a pickleball court or for a basketball court. I don't do those things. There's a lot of people in this community that has been reached out to since 2013. I understand that there's change and people don't like change. They're concerned about change, and I understand it. But at the same time, the walkers, the runners, the cyclists are asking for a safe place to go just as much as someone who plays basketball, who plays pickleball, or who wants to sit in a park and swing on a swing set. Thanks.
My name is Gary Tharp, resident for Corona for 38 years. And first of all, I am upset that this is the first time I've heard about this. Without the information that we got from Mr. Speaks on Saturday or Sunday afternoon, I wouldn't have been here. It's the first notification I've gotten. The gentleman over here talked about all these focus groups and all that type of stuff. Has anybody talked to anybody that lives behind these flood control channels? I do. 20 years ago, we moved into that house for one specific reason, that there was nothing behind our house. I've got a daughter that's disabled. I travel a lot. My wife is there. When we moved in, we had 3 kids. 2 of those kids are now gone. I still have that disabled daughter. That fence behind the wash, and I live on Garrettson, and I will be the entrance, the gateway from Garrettson onto that trail going southbound or going north, I guess. We have problems with people there now, cutting through that fence and vagrants living down there, causing problems, stealing from people, my neighbors from in their backyards. My block wall on one side is only 4 feet tall. Now there's a vine that grows across it because the previous owners, who actually was a former mayor of the city, saw that and they raised that up. I have concerns. I just spent $4,000 with a security system in for the reason because the county wouldn't enforce. Even the gate would be cut, people would be walking through there, we'd hear them through the middle of the night, and I'd call, it'd take 3-4 weeks for them to come out and fix it. I can't have that when I'm out of town and worried about my family. 2 women and a daughter that can't protect herself if somebody entered the home. I want to know what the police are going to do, because we've made phone calls to the police when people are back there. We have no jurisdiction, that's the county. You call the county says, well, you need to call the police. We have finger pointing on both directions. Again, I bought that house for a specific reason. I didn't want somebody living behind me. I wanted some quiet and peace and quiet there. And with this, we're not going to get it. On the other aspect, the gentleman before me talked about the hiking and all that. I walk 20 to 25 miles a week. I cross the street, I go up to by Santa Ana Park, I walk that. I have no problems. I see people running all the time. My wife was a marathoner. She trained 6 days a week running the city streets in Corona, the sidewalks on that. She also ran the Santa Ana River, which you guys have mentioned that, and had nothing but problems. She got assaulted one time. She's got friends that have been assaulted multiple times. Before I came over here, my wife picked up and looked at the information that was public about the Santa Ana River Trail, and there's been assaults there, there's been rapes there, there's been crimes, there's been homeless encampments that have been put up there. This is all a concern to me. Again, had I known this was going to happen, I would not have bought our house. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Bill Miller. I've lived in Corona my whole life. I've been living down from Gary for the past 48 years. Haven't had many neighbors behind me because of such a nice wide area. But I've found people walking back there, and I've called the cops. And they look at the sign on it, and they say, we have no jurisdiction in here. It says California Penal Code 555. So what's going to happen when you guys get this property? Who's going to police it? That's one of my questions. And there is a guy living in the ditch, not when it rains though.
My name is George Beckman. I live on Garrettson, on Greengate, similar to the last 2 fellows. I have the same concerns. One of the main reasons we bought our home is because of the safety and security that is afforded us due to the fact that we have those locking gates that prohibit people from traveling to and from behind the house. And the the problems that come with it that we know firsthand. My father-in-law went through the same thing because he had a similar circumstance with the channel behind his house, and it invites nothing but trouble. And I don't want to import that into my life.
Hi, guys. Dave Seltzer, resident of Orchard Glen. I went through the updated Trails Master Plan, and first I got to say, there's some extremely attractive models that you guys got for photos in there. But I just to reaffirm, we're still on the same page from our last meeting, which I appreciated very much. There's still some language about Skyline Regional Park to investigate parking feasibility and potential amenities, could include parking, yada, yada. So I just want to make sure we're still on the same page, that even though this says February, that's okay, excellent. The other thing I wanted to mention, and Jim and I talked briefly, I don't know if Upper Meadow is going to be called Upper Meadow, or if anyone even knows what that is. Yeah, and I've called it, so there's Skyline Meadow, and up above that is another beautiful meadow. And what I'm hoping is that perhaps with the funds we're going to save on the not using a consultant for Skyline Park, we can cut a nice, safe trail that goes from Skyline Meadow, it's real short, up to Upper Meadow, and then place some benches up there because the view is just spectacular. It's 360 degrees up there. You can see the San Gabriel's, the Cleveland, Skyline Meadow, Mount San Jacinto, and I just think it would be something that the hiking community would really, really appreciate. So, thank you.
Hey, Dave, what page was that on?
Which page is
The
which
one that
on?
you were talking about, the parking?
Uh,
I did.
217 is where they were talking about.
yeah, there's two page numbers. 217 is the bottom page number,
It's in the.
or
appendix.
269.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name's Jim Miles, and I've lived in Corona for 25 years. I live on Crestline Drive. I have some of my neighbors here, and I've actually sent some pictures in that shows exactly what that looks like when you open up a flood control channel in somebody's backyard. If you guys want to take a look at that, basically you're in your backyard in your pool, and everyone's walking right behind your house, which like it's been said before, people buy those houses because they have no neighbor behind them. And I think you may be open to some litigation if the home values are decreasing because of those hiking trails. I'm not against hiking. Like the previous speaker said, my dog and I and my wife hike and walk on the city streets every day, and did so this morning, took some pictures. There's not a lot of million people walking on the sidewalks. They're very safe. I love living in Corona because of the safety, because there's walking trails, there's bicycle trails all over the city. We ride our bikes all over the place. But having the flood control channel open is a whole nother thing. And I have a couple of reasons why. The flood control wash is fenced off for the protection and safety of those who live beside it. The trail will be open for people who are camping, who knows if they're going to ride their bicycles and motorcycles. And unlike forest trails, trails along the public streets could easily, people can access that area if they fall or if they get into a health situation. Also, wildlife use those washes. They use the washes for transportation, to get water and food and travel from the forest. The master plan shows that city sidewalks are involved in the hiking trail. And this is a good alternative, I think. I think if you use the public streets that are already there, those walkers would actually provide added eyes on the neighborhood and provide safety for the people that live in those neighborhoods. And I know all of you people that have run for office have walked down our city streets. You know that they're safe to walk on. There's no issues for people that want to walk. They will walk on the sidewalk. And also, the storm channel is dangerous. We all know that. So I don't know how you're ever going to make it safe or how to enforce anything that's going on down there. And that's all I have to say. And really, having this meeting at 3 o'clock is unacceptable. And really, we live on the wash that you guys are proposing to put a trail on. That's the first thing we heard about it, was one of your councilmen dropped a letter off at our homes last Sunday, so thanks.
Eugene Parker. I live in South Corona on Bighorn Drive, and I'm very concerned with security as far as the residents are concerned along that wash. Like one of the other gentlemen said, right now you can walk up to my back fence and literally look into it. And that tells you how easy it is going to be to jump over it as well. So, and with this gentleman's presentation, I didn't hear anything about security for the residents. And I wouldn't buy a house with a hiking trail directly behind it. And like the other gentleman said, property values are probably going to go down. It's going to make it harder for us to sell our homes should we decide to leave. So I am totally against this idea of a hiking trail on the wash behind my property. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Yolanda Niquette, and I live on Stonewall Drive. That's right at the cul-de-sac where Benjamin Franklin Elementary School is. My backyard, I could see the bridge. So there's an empty space of property that supposedly belongs to the school that's right next to the bridge. I can tell you what happens at that wash. It's like the 4th of July. They're dropping bombs in the wash that shake our homes. They're smoking weed back there. They're homeless. There's graffiti. There's suspicious looking people. The neighbor to my right is in law enforcement. Single man, wonderful neighbor. They broke into his home and were coming to my house. I'm a widow. I lost my husband 6 years ago. My son is staying with me right now. That would be the worst thing that could happen to open up that trail. There are people go with scooters, motorbikes, skateboards. They're down there anyway. If you open it, it's going to be a disaster. I have 3 dogs, Maltese, another one half Maltese, and another terrier. They have poked sticks through the fence and almost poked an eye out on one of my puppies because they were barking because there was people on the trail. I've had rocks thrown into my yard, almost busting a window. It's shady. It's shady. It's not safe. I am totally against this. Another thing is one of these gentlemen brought up the concern about the children. That is the biggest concern because parents do let their children cross the bridge and go home because they come out the back gate and it's really safe for them. They walk out, they get on the bridge, and then they go into the street Mangular and they go home. It's safe. You open it up as a trail, it's going to be dangerous. And there are homeless living down in that channel. There's these big holes down there where the water comes out through, I'm assuming. There are people living in there. I've seen it. My neighbors and I, we've seen it. It's a disaster waiting to happen. And I'll be really upset if my property value goes down. And, oh, another thing, I planted bougainvilleas along the corner that's on my yard to prevent people from coming into my yard and to shield my dogs. And another thing is, we know when somebody's in the trail because all the neighbors on Mangular and on my side on Stonewall, we have dogs. And when people are in the trail, we know because the dogs let us know. And it's going to be a nightmare. It's true. We didn't know this was going to go, that this was a plan until.
Ma'am, it's a 3-minute limit.
Until we got the notice on Sunday. Please don't do it.
Thank you.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. You just met my mom. She's been in the community for 30 years in their same home. She just said, and this gentleman's not even looking my way, So she just said she lost her husband not too long ago. I was in the military. I did my time to serve the country. I've already retired from my company for 30 years. I'm spending time with her now because her husband's not there. Now, I can tell you over 30 years when I'm not around what has happened. People have shattered her gate, rattling the cage. Our neighbor got broken into. Now that she's alone, I'm retired, I'm spending more time with her. I have seen the coyotes going down that trail. I have seen the coyotes stealing the dogs, jumping over. I have seen teenagers, rugrats, homeless, coming up and down that trail that is secured and damaging property, causing ruckus. And you want to open it up to allow 24/7 of people to walk up and down that trail unsupervised. Yes, sir. People are entitled to have freedom, to have entertainment. I agree with you. However, not at the expense of other people's property and safety. Because the council, however good or bad they are, they will not be in our neighborhood to protect us when someone jumps over the fence and wants to do damage to their property. So please, common sense is, river washes are known throughout LA and every other city for that specific reason, to funnel water correctly. There's already gates there to minimize the access, but they still get in because you have the area by the school secured, but on the other end of the river wash, it's easy access. So you want to grant more people? Great. Fire bombs, firecrackers, potential fires to people's homes, vandalism, burglaries. So who? Can we sue you guys? Can we sue the city for allowing our homes to be vulnerable? For our homes to be vandalized? Or someone to be murdered? Common sense says, yes, find a place, but not at the expense of somebody else's safety. If you guys have any common sense, which I'm sure you all do, safety, military-wise, safety always comes first. That's all I'm asking. Common sense, safety for the residents, especially when they're living alone. Thank you.
Good afternoon, council members. John Donaldson. I live in Applegate in West Corona. And I hope that I can be as passionate and articulate as many of the previous speakers have been. I know you're hearing them talk about the impact that further expansion of recreational activities in Corona might cause for them personally. I do agree with the number one goal listed on the goals page, which is increased opportunity for trails access. And I don't think they're arguing with that. I think they're arguing with they don't want the trail access in their backyard. You're the referees on this deal, and between you and the city staff, you're gonna need to work this out, and it'll probably be painful at certain stages. The second thing I'd like to say is we're hearing mostly from people who will be directly impacted. We haven't heard very much in today's presentation from the hikers, bikers, and other outdoor people who are using existing facilities already. I don't know how many times I've been up Skyline. I go by the Orchard Glen people all the time, and I'm wondering how Councilman Steiner doesn't hear from them more often, but maybe he does. One of the common inputs here is emphasizing that the fellow citizens are not nice people. They throw trash, they come by late at night, and so on and so forth. I don't know what we've tallied up on police reports or police call-ins on this issue, but that should be one of the things that we all look at and weigh that in terms of does the community need more activity in that area of some sort? I believe that the purpose of this meeting, this document started out because we had open space available, and people wanted some alternative to Skyline, and that would be the only goal I would suggest re-emphasizing is people want to have some option to Skyline. And finally, the city council probably should establish some priorities that set this thing in place and make change in direction possible as the developments occur. So have a follow-up monitoring type of thing in the future. Thank you.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Suzanne Pantoja, and I've been living in Corona for a long in my current home since 2016. And I am one of those that are directly impacted where my backyard, the other side of the fence, is the channel on Oak Street. So I will tell you that I am one of those crazy runners, hikers, walkers. I go all around the city, and we have wonderful sidewalks. Corona is wonderful. I gotta say, it's the bubble. Our family is here, but I never would have bought a home understanding and signing paperwork I even had a few days notice to look at wording from if I understood that there would be even the slightest opportunity for on the other side of my wall being open to the public. There is nothing in that paperwork as a homeowner that says that. I took the risk and liability understanding there's a flood channel, so I get that. And I bought the home knowing there's a flood channel. Okay, but there's no one behind me, and I get that. And I understood that privacy, and I enjoy it as family. When you open it, though, even as a hiker, a runner, and all of that, there's other areas of the city to enjoy. Not opening the backyard, other side of the wall, for crime, for vandalism, for homeless encampments, things that I see around the city, for even community involvement, understanding that there's certain pockets within our city, and as that channel is a secluded trail, we would have huge concerns. We already have areas within the city that there are trails. I mean, Corona has lots of trails. You just have to get out there on foot. And I love it because I do. I enjoy our community and I enjoy what we have. We easily can access Skyline with our sidewalks that we currently have. Not opening a channel and exposing backyards and risk and crime and as homeowners, that liability. I know for me, that is not something that I would feel comfortable with. If this does go through, it doesn't make for a better community, it makes for a community on edge. And as one that's directly impacted and one that enjoys what Corona does offer with hiking, with trails, with running, there's other areas to do that, not opening a flood channel directly behind resident homes. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. My name is Sophia. I've been a Corona resident my whole life. And I hear what everybody has to say about the security and all that. And I think that people want more trails in Corona because you guys say you guys are the city of trails, but there's only a couple trails that people know. And Skyline and Tin Canyon, they get very crowded. So we want more access to the outdoors. So I think this trails plan is a great one. And the outdoors is for everybody. So thank you.
Good evening. My name is Gina Glenf Williams. I have not lived in Corona as long as many of you, but I've been here since 2006. I chose this community after having relatives that lived here and reading the community plan. At that time, the community plan was intended to keep the Cleveland forest and the canopy of trees and everything else as it was so that it didn't impact the forest. My house, the backyard faces Valencia, and I have had someone climb the fence from the hard walking scape and break into my house. And that is also had been a problem in 2010 when we had the recession, and the home next door to me stayed vacant for 2.5 years. And some vagrants began living in there. I'm sorry we don't have the money already for enough police services. When I moved here, I saw the police stop someone who was rolling through a stop sign. I said, that's my city. And I see them all the time in my neighborhood. I don't see them anymore. Nothing in the plan that I read that has been presented to you indicated that part of the planning included law enforcement or the fire department. Nothing in that plan that I liked. They said some of the problems may be NIMBYism. NIMBY, not in my backyard. I don't want it in my backyard, but I'm a NIMBA. I don't want it in my bank account because some of the things they indicated was getting funding from taxes. Don't touch my taxes. They just went up. We already voted in Zone 9 not to pay for additional street maintenance. That proposal went down. What makes anyone think we want to pay for people from the other side of the Corona area to have their pleasure behind our houses and in our community? We don't. There was no explanation on how those taxes would be generated or who they would be collected from, and that's an issue. There was no communication with naturalists, environmentalists, the impact to animals, which is also something that is really why I moved here. And I just think that it should be rethought. That part about writing grants and those grants that were listed, those grants are not available to everyone. I worked in writing grants for facilities for a 750,000 square mile area of LA Unified School District, and they're not easy. And I got money, but there's few of that money, and some of those that were listed wouldn't qualify. Thank you.
My name is Maurice Sanders. I'm a resident of Corona for the last 25 years. I listened to the presenter say that we took a survey of 300 people, 10 meetings, 30 people each, and we came up and you guys created a master plan that a presentation of 300 some plus pages. I looked through that plan. I went through that plan. In that plan, you are asking us to foot the bill or come up with a way to pay the bill for a walkover to provide access to the Cleveland National Forest. We live in Corona. Access to the Cleveland National Forest should be access granted by the Cleveland National Forest, not through us. We are abreast to it. It is not our responsibility to provide access. A key reason why I say this is I look at Foothill. The road through Foothill is the best bypass of Corona I've seen, of any city. It is a mechanism by which people drive past Corona, not to use any of the Corona facilities, but to add wear and tear on the Corona residents. The second thing, as we develop these trails, we are already noticing, as Corona residents, that the people who live up against the forest, myself and other residents, have seen an increase in our insurance capability to provide insurance for our homes. Our residential insurance has gone up because of that forest. And because over the last 5 years, we've had 3 brush fires in that area that you're talking about providing a meadow and a high meadow for people outside of our city to use an asset that's a Cleveland National Forest's asset. For some reason, this doesn't add up to me because I'm starting to think numbers. What is the return on value for the Corona residents that we're going to get out of providing access for people outside of the residency of Corona for us? What is our tax base? A road goes in on Foothill. We provide parking to the people who hike in the hills. When I first moved to Corona, I would get up at midnight and catch the Cal Fire watch change on Skyline Drive Trail. Catch a hike on their truck to the top of Peck's Peak and hike that trail without any access that made it easy. If you're gonna hike, here's my last comment. If you're gonna be a hiker, be a hiker. Otherwise, why don't we just put in a tram and haul them up to the top so they can see the views and make it easy for them? Hike or don't hike, but don't be providing access on the backs of the Corona residents to give them easy access to do whatever. Hikers will hike.
Hi, I'm Carol Hubble. I live on Bighorn Drive, and I have the flood control channel behind me. I bought it when it was originally being built. I was a permanent resident when it was being built. I purposely purchased that home, not on the street. I was a single mom raising my daughter. I felt safe to be there. I knew if there's anybody on the other side of that flood control channel, that you call the police, because they aren't supposed to be on the other side of that block wall or down there. So in the center, you know you're safe. You're opening this up, and now we're going to have, what, graffiti paint? Oh, we get to look at different color paints. You know, they can't get, oh, this is the only color the city has is white when it's gray. Safety is my main concern. I have my dogs out all the time. When my dogs bark, that's because there's a wild animal in the backyard or out on that flood control channel, squirrels, bobcat. I run into a bobcat who's flying over the fence. The water, what you guys are also putting out there too is the trees. Who's going to put for the water? Concrete. People are going to be driving vehicles. How are these block walls going to sustain the concrete or the tar and the dirt? Are these walls all going to start shifting and the flood control channel is going to move on them with these swimming pools? Nobody has privacy back there because everybody's going to be walking by, and we have to deal with this 12 hours a day, 365 days a year, forever. It's not a short thing. It's whenever somebody, and I get out, I'm out person walking my dogs. I take them to Huntington Beach, to the dog park, all different places I'm an outdoor person. My dogs are part of this, but I don't want them to be stressed out either in my backyard, constantly barking at night or during the day because there's people now walking beside on this flood control channel, and we don't know who belongs there and who doesn't belong there. Tax-wise, fires, that's the other thing. You know, we always had the fires now on that one side. You're going to open it up to a different. We have never had a fire on that side of the mountain up there, but now you're going to have it. It's going to have more of the fires, but everybody else here has pretty much said exactly how I feel. I did not get this notice until Saturday afternoon, and I should have gotten this 2 years ago. Not Saturday, at stressing me out. I haven't been able to sleep in 5 days because now I'm going to think, how am I going to, be there and have people coming up, jumping my fence? I'm sorry.
Hello, my name is Laura Kincaid. I have lived in Corona for 13 years. My husband and I bought our first house before I had children. I am now blessed with 4, and 3 of them are girls. I have a swimming pool in my backyard that backs up to the flood control. Just a show of hands, how many of you guys have daughters? How many of your daughters have expressed that a creep was staring at them or trying to take their picture of them, particularly at a beach or at a water park? I don't know about you, but I think my children deserve privacy in their backyard, and they're not going to get that. If you put a sidewalk, I think calling it a trail is not okay because it is a sidewalk. It is going to be a sidewalk. It's not a trail. It does not lead to a waterfall or another spot. It's going to connect 2 streets. I don't know how you guys would feel if you saw a phone peeking over your backyard, taking pictures of your teenage daughters in their bathing suits. That is not okay. We bought that house 7 years ago with the intention of privacy, raising our children with nobody directly behind them. Like somebody mentioned before, Skyline was there before those homes were built. Those homeowners knew what they were buying. We did not. This is a flood control. We were under the impression that it would not be turned in and developed into anything else because the flood control is needed, particularly coming down from the forest. If you guys put a sidewalk there, that defeats the whole reason why I pretty much can guarantee why every single one of those people bought that house. Another thing is the homeless. I think we can all agree that not only Corona, but all of California has a major homeless issue. What is going to stop those people from setting up the tents? I think we've all seen pictures of the Santa Ana riverbed, particularly over by Angel Stadium. It's filled with homeless, tents, trash. Who's going to stop that from happening for a sidewalk? And I haven't heard anyone mention the budget for this, $30 million for a sidewalk that's connecting streets together. There's already sidewalks there. There was already sidewalks set up. There's no need to put a sidewalk behind people's houses and give them a lack of privacy, give them a lack of security. That's not okay. And nobody here wants to foot that bill. $30 million is an outrageous amount to spend on something like this. Put it in areas that need it. 6th Street, the 6th Street Park. Fix those areas up for people to enjoy them. Thank you, Mr. Speak, for making sure the information got to the homeowners. We appreciate that.
Okay.
Mayor, sorry, we also have someone on Zoom that would like to provide comments.
And can you take care of that request?
Yes.
Okay.
Hello.
Go ahead.
Hello, Mabel. Hi. Yes. I agree with everything that everyone said. I too enjoy nature, but I have also seen what can happen when you open channels like that. We currently live Citricado, and the channel goes right behind our house. It's a safety concern, as everybody mentioned before. And as one of my fellow Corona citizens, I worked with grants, and grants are really difficult to get. It's not easy. So yes, maybe it's a possibility to apply for them, but guarantee of getting money to support this project is highly unlikely, considering that we have other things within the community that we can use that money for. Like the previous speaker spoke, there's a park on 6th Street that needs a lot of help. There's also off of Main Street, where that new Starbucks is across from the hospital. I'm seeing a huge change in that area where a lot of homeless people are being moved. Where are they going? They're probably going to be behind our house. So we also didn't receive this letter until Sunday, I believe. So if there's anything that we can do to prevent this from happening, I would really appreciate that.
Thank you. All right, moving forward, first and foremost, thank you, all of you who showed up and spoke. You have truly learned the most important microphone in this room. And with that, we'll bring it back to council, and Tony, you're up first.
Thank you, Mayor. I also wanted to thank the residents that came out and spoke. We don't always get the perspective of the residents because they don't show up to tell us. So we really appreciate that. When I was reading the Trails Master Plan, I was mostly excited about Circuit 2 because I think that's in District 2, and it's taking advantage of some of the trails that have been built and are really easy to build, and they don't go behind anybody's backyard. That was the one that I was most interested in. this is not going to make anybody in the audience very happy, but one of the things that I was thinking of, and some research that I did, having grown up in Orange County and riding my bike from Anaheim to the beach on the Santa Ana Riverbed Trail, you go by, it's all behind houses. I don't know when it was built or if the trail was there before the houses. But what I do know is that trail, the houses that are along that trail are some of the most sought after properties in Orange County. And those houses do not sit on the market for very long. They are snapped up really quickly, and it is advantageous to their house. It doesn't diminish the value. That being said, there's some very strong opinions about having a trail behind somebody's house. And one of the things that I agree with mostly, or the most, is that when y'all bought that house, that wasn't a trail. It wasn't expected to be a trail. So I do have a lot of sympathy for that. As far as this trail's master plan goes, I'm really interested in Circuit 2 because it's in an area that I don't think is going to minimize anybody's privacy. That being said, I'm not a big fan of opening up a flood channel behind people's houses for people to walk through. So those are my opinions. Thank you.
Thank you, Tony. Wes?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First, thank you all for coming out. Yes, and I walked and knocked on a few people's homes just to kind of let them know that there was something to talk about. And one of the things that came into discussion with quite a few people was, and I would start off the conversation with, have you heard about the Trails Master Plan? And about 10% of the time people said, yeah. And I said, well, did you know that it includes, or there's a possibility of including a opening up the flood control channels? And they said, really? I had no idea. So part of it, I get that we put this out and we've done this now for 2 years, but no one understood that that's one of the options. And I brought this up when we had our first check-in with this, I brought this up as something that needed to get brought out to the public. And I thought this was important to make sure that people understood that there's a possibility of this, to weigh in, give their information, come and get information as well. And hopefully we've all heard that. It's important, I think, that people are present in the conversation and we're transparent in what we're doing and allowing people to weigh in. So with that, I'll kind of dive into my comments and questions. Are we doing questions too? You okay with that? Yeah. Okay. So first, trail number 11, which is the one that backs up to, or goes into the Oak Street debris basin. I asked this last time and I didn't get it. There's no reference to it at all. It has a berm that goes up. It's pretty high and pretty steep. What are ADA compliance? I'm reading that there were some numbers between 3 and 5% or 5 and 7, depending on they needed to have flat spots. It goes from being a regular flood control channel where you see a gentle incline, which I don't know, Corona's pretty not gentle. But that goes up to a berm that holds back the water at the Oak Street Basin. So it's very steep, and it goes up about 20 feet above people's backyards. So it's literally along that edge that goes along, there's probably 3 streets that folks literally could stand on top and look, not just have to peek over the fence, them just standing, they can see the entire yard. And I brought that up last time too, and it hasn't been addressed. Trail number 12, which is the one that's on the east side, just kind of dumps people onto Upper, and that seems to peter out. So I'm not quite sure, what the plan is there because there wasn't a connection to it. And then I wanted to ask some questions on cost. I looked up probably half a dozen or more different bikeways that have been done in the last 10 or 15 years or 10 years, and including some of the ones that you did yourselves at Alta. And even Caltrans, their estimates are, and this was from a couple of years ago, $2.7 million per mile. And I've seen that go up for the Burbank Wash and bike path and walk path to $8.7 million per mile. And then the LA River bike path, it's $200 million for 13 miles. Bologna Creek, $2.6 million per mile. And I realize that there's, there's money available for transportation-related, active transportation. And there's lots of competition for that money, and those numbers seem to be, they fluctuate every couple of years. And I'm concerned about my question is, what is the match when they see those? Is it 50-50? Is it matching? Or do they, and I've seen it on some of them ones that were listed in here, they were 60% or 40%. Do we know what the current matches are right now?
It's a spectrum, sir. I think that the $2 to $8 million marker of recent assumptions is a good point where it comes down to the site, it comes down to the design expression, it comes down to the bedrock of whatever you're putting on. Does the road already exist or not? For your previous example about the height, would you need to cut switchbacks? All these sorts of things are what bore out that really large discrepancy in fee. Speaking to your other point related to funding sources, yes, many of them do have a match. Presumably, if the city's not in a position to do it without funding, however, it would not proceed. So we would choose a opportunity, apply for funding, pursue that. If that funding were not provided, however, the design and engineering would not take place, nor the fabrication and installation. That match varies between, I think, don't quote me, and the Cycle 7 guidance has not come out, but for Cycle 7 from Caltrans, the one that we're specifically speaking to as a great opportunity, is in that 10% or less range. Typically goes to in-kind contribution to cover staff time.
Okay, great. And then, I went out and visited a couple of places that have trails behind their home. In fact, talked to a resident that literally just moved to Corona 3 months ago to get away from a place that had a trail or had a walking path behind his home because he had all kinds of issues, lived in District 2, and was, it was like, oh, are you kidding me? I just moved in. I just built everything. He was in his garage when I was talking to him. And he just said, look, it's a nightmare. He said, every time my dogs are outside and someone goes by, the dogs go absolutely crazy. He said, I can keep them away from my front yard, my front fence, so they don't go nuts when people walk by or ride by. He said, I don't want to live through this again. He goes, so it looks like I'm, selling my house. I said, don't do that. There's a discussion here. So somebody asked me why was getting this to people today, why I was trying to get people to come today. Because the way that these policies work is that we decide what the policy is going to be. Staff takes that as a policy, and they start spending staff time and money to go look for funding and start planning. And if it's not something that we're interested in doing, then we need to address it at this point to make sure that we can, figure out what that's going to be and where it's going to go. So I wanted to address a couple of the policies. Can we go back to the policy slide? And while you're looking for that, I'll bring up one thing. Well, I did find a Supreme Court case from 2014 that talked about liabilities for cities, and I sent this to the city manager earlier today, to the city attorney earlier today to see if there'd been any updates to it, because it's 2014. And it basically talked about liability for recreational use and the immunity for that. And that the mere fact that people ride, this is from the Supreme Court case, the mere fact that people ride bicycles on a bike trail does not mean that a landowner can claim immunity from liability. While beneficial to bicyclists and other trail users, the court's narrow interpretation will no doubt furrow brows in cities and counties relying on bike trails to satisfy transportation-related needs. The immunity is only if it's for recreation only. So if we're going to apply for active transportation funds, there's a liability question. So hopefully I didn't give a ton of time to the city attorney for me to get back to us, but that was a big one for me to go, curious. I want to say that I know this one was a trudge. I know that the Parks and Trails, the Parks Commission did a wonderful job, trying to whittle this down so it could be readable, and it's well done. I would say for the most part. I have, like I said, my issues with especially the stuff that's behind people's houses. So I think there's some ways to update this. So first, on policy number 6, it says word desirable and practical. I'd like to introduce the word privacy somewhere in there, that we're taking something from someone, it should be at least be acknowledged, and it should be part of the consideration that privacy is an issue. And there's no mention of privacy. It's really all about who's using it, which is fine too. It's good, right? Policy number 8 does not talk about electric bike use. I know that several communities have been looking to ban electric bikes because of the speed. In fact, there's 3 little hooligans that are in my neighborhood that constantly terrorize folks, and if I was quick enough to catch them, I would be able to follow them home. But these electric bikes should not, I know they're not allowed to be on sidewalks, but they happen to be, and I want to know what the policy would be on, at least have it mentioned, have to be some kind of policy on electric bikes. And then number 12, density bonuses for trail facilities. I want to tighten it up a little bit and figure out, I like the idea of if we're developing a new project that's adjacent to a trail, 100% we should be protecting the trail and making sure that the access is preserved, that folks have been using. Was the whole reason for this entire plan was to identify where people are using trails and find a way to legitimize them, fund them, protect them, but I want to make sure that we're talking about those and not, somebody else just goes, okay, density bonus, and then if I give an extra, whatever, or if I, build a bike lane in front of my property, I can build, a bunch more homes. So I'd like to hear a little bit more about what that means, and as we develop that policy, hash that out a little bit more. I think you use the word NIMBY in the report to talk about it as a negative, and I can see it from that point of view. However, it's when I hear NIMBY, I hear community engagement and opportunity to exchange ideas. It also allows folks to express their interest in their neighborhoods and protecting what their neighborhood identity. And you've heard several people here today talk about buying their homes, and we've all heard the argument before in the past that the realtor told me that the empty lot behind me is a national forest and it'll never get, or it's a national park and it'll never get built. And we've all heard those arguments, and we smile and say, well, your realtor lied to you. But when someone looks behind their home and they see a flood control channel, there's not too many things it can be. So I think if we're them to come and relay their abilities and us not listen to them, I think is important. The one thing I think that just got touched on by, I think, just one of the speakers was wildlife. These are wildlife corridors. I mean, they're urban. I mean, they're the definition of urban wildlife interface, 100%. And by introducing even occasional hikers and bikers on them, it disrupts it. And you're talking about fences on both sides where you're going to be driving, wildlife into people's yards when there's, it's something that wasn't talked about at all, and it really should be. Let's see. I think that's it for now. Thanks, sir.
Thanks, Wes. Jackie?
I want to thank each and every one of you for taking the time for coming out and for writing emails and for expressing yourselves and sharing your concerns. It's so, so important. I want to put you at ease. I have no interest in pushing through unilateral decisions, especially when there's a safety concern. So I have no interest in unilaterally opening up these channels when there are so very obviously, obvious safety concerns. So please rest assured. And I'm really sorry that you were alarmed. The notification you got was not from the city. And I'm sorry that it set off and triggered so many emotions for so many folks. I know that the intention from my colleague was not to upset anyone. It was probably just to engage you in communication. I do feel slight deja vu from a previous email about just a general misunderstanding of what this trails plan actually intends. Nowhere on this plan is there written that these channels will be unilaterally opened, that there would be no concern for safety or for, what the impact would be on the community. I do agree, though, that with this draft, we need to amend to ensure that safety is explicitly called out. So I'm on board with that. But I am very sorry that you felt that you did not receive notification. This trails effort has been going on for a while. That being said, we all live really busy lives, and it is difficult to keep up with everything all at once and to be present for all of it. I do recommend that you sign up for the weekly email newsletters. So if you go on corona.gov, there's a button at the top that says subscribe, receive notifications, follow the city on social media, send us messages, send us emails. We receive them and we read them all. And we are a very receptive council. And if you can't be here during the meeting, that's okay. You can let us know your opinion, and it means just as much. So know that it's not falling on deaf ears. Know that we're listening, that your staff is listening. And so, again, I'm very sorry if you felt that you were being misled or left out. That was not intentional. And the communication came from one of my colleagues who I think his intention was good, and it might have just triggered a lot of feelings for folks. And anyhow, I'm glad that you're here. So I want to put you at ease. Again, I have no interest in shoving a plan through, especially something that's meant to connect us. Creating a trails master plan in the city, a plan for connectivity, was meant to do just that. Engage people in their community, engage people in their city, engage with one another. It's meant to be a positive thing. It is not meant to be a negative thing, and it's not meant, certainly, to make you feel unsafe in your home. I want to point out that the plan and the policy recommendations do call out that when desirable and practical. I will submit to the mayor a motion for a couple of things on this draft. First, that we please edit policy number 6 to include a consideration for homeowners' privacy. So it says, as council member noted, when desirable and practical. We should also say when safe or when considering homeowners' personal safety. And it could very well be that none of these channels in the next 10 years fit this criteria, right? They may not work. But the reality is, before this, we never even had a plan. And without a plan, you don't get anywhere. The city is piecemealing how to create connectivity in one-off situations, and we can't continue to do that. So we need to think ahead about how do we incorporate public space, trails as a way of transporting and outdoor living and as an amenity for the entire city. And we do that collectively through plans like this. And the reason why there are so many drafts is because we hope that by the end of it, we've reached something that is mostly agreeable by the majority. So policy number 6, if we can please include to reflect the concerns of the majority of the residents that are here today and that whom have written in as well. I'd also like to strike from, I believe it's the 200 plus odd page, the appendix, the Skyline Regional Park, and strike the actual wording as we did from the previous. Let's make sure that we are.
You're stealing Jim's thunder.
Sorry, you should have asked the mayor to go first. But make sure that we are very clear there. So my motion, Mayor, to be clear, is moving forward with the draft with those two considerations. Ensuring that we are capturing everyone's concerns about safety, and making sure that everyone knows that this plan does not say, nowhere does this plan say that these channels are going to be opened. It says, when appropriate, considering privacy, we're going to amend it to add privacy, and it may not work, and that's okay. But if we don't have a plan, we're not going to get anywhere with our trail system. So that's my motion, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Jackie. Donna, you're noting all the amendments.
So with a motion, you probably would like to second that and take action.
I need
on
a
that.
second.
Oh, I'll second it. Oh, Jim will second it. We're not voting right now, though, right?
As a reminder, you're not voting to approve the plan, but you can make decisions using motions here today so that we have direction for staff of what you'd like us to amend or change.
Do you want us to make the motion and vote now, or?
So the motion's been made and it's been seconded, so you would want to vote on that now.
Okay. Sylvia, can you?
Well, hold on a second. I have a substitute. I have a substitute motion.
Hang on, Sylvia.
We'll do this again. I'd like to, I'm fine with that. I think six is great, and reduce the privacy and the security concern. 8, I would like to include some language on electric bikes. And policy number 12. It just seems a little open. I just don't know what.
So can I comment on that?
Sure.
With your permission. So that's the recommendation there is that you develop a policy. So that's all that is. That policy would come back for council to take a look at a fully fleshed out policy.
Okay,
It's
that's
simply a
fine.
recommendation for it at this point.
That's good.
So is your amendment just to add 8?
Yeah, just to add electric bike issue.
Okay,
Just to, it's considered.
I'm in agreement with that amendment and second it.
Okay. Does anybody else want to change anything? Sylvia, can you do your thing?
I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor.
Oh, here we go.
Yeah, I don't want to change anything, but I would almost like them to be done individually because I disagree with Councilmember Speak. I think electric bikes should be provided.
No, I didn't say they should be outlawed. I said that there should be a policy on how there should be some kind of regulation, either speed or limitation on grade, or it'd be just discussion. I'd just like it to be talked about at some point.
Okay.
We're not
You don't
voting on
wanna-
a policy right now.
I get
Just
that.
to
but
have
you-
them introduce some language regarding them, that's all.
Okay. I don't want to say no to yours and inadvertently say no to Councilmember Casillas, which is, we should be just doing them individually anyway, unlike our federal government likes to load everything up all in one. I'm just saying, I would prefer them just to be clear in the sense that.
Mr. Ellis, for number 8, can we, in the same word choices as number 12, implement a policy? Can we have number 8 say implement a policy so that it comes back to us?
That's good.
Sure can, whatever you'd like it to be, and that sounds like there's agreement on that. You just would like us to bring back a policy that deals with e-bikes and things like that, sure.
Okay.
Sylvia, I'm going to go out on a limb and say, can you call a vote? Oh. Never mind. Okay, with that, Vice Mayor Steiner.
Thank you, sir. Well, thank you all for coming out and sharing your thoughts. I'm just going to read all the notes that I had written down before you all start talking, and some of it does reiterate some things that you said and that some of that my colleagues have said. So yeah, page 217, the Skyline Park Master Plan. Get rid of that word, Skyline Park. Don't talk about parking lots or anything at Skyline. Regarding the trail inventory, did the working group or staff mention Fresno Road as a possible trail? And Fresno Road is the road where you get right off the 91 freeway, you make a right, and it's the first road where people used to park to look at the horses. So I didn't see that, but I didn't know if you guys talked about it. The reason I bring it up is about 2010, I was on a pretty good vegetation fire at Fresno Road. And we hiked way the hell up there, and it was gorgeous, other than the fire, of course. And there's ungroomed parking right now at the base. So if you haven't talked about it, I'd like you to consider looking into it, to add it to the trails inventory.
Councilmember Steiner, we have not evaluated that as a potential trail, but that is something that we can look at. If you would like us to bring that back as a consideration when we return with the plan, we would be happy to do that.
It may not work out, but I think we definitely need to look at it. So thank you. Let's see, what else did I have here? Okay, flood control channels. Okay, in 2019, when we were talking about our goal of becoming the city of trails because we're surrounded by such beauty, it never crossed my mind that we'd be talking about flood control channels. It never crossed my mind that we would be talking about inner city trails, being able to walk from Skyline to City Park or City Park to Skyline. Never even crossed my mind because I just didn't really care about that. What I cared about was accessing the trails that are available or the potential trail improvements that could be made at the outskirts of our city. And that was the Cleveland National Forest, Santa Ana River Trail, Prado Basin, Chino Hills State Park. That's where I wanted to go with this. Now, when the first draft was introduced to us, that's where I learned, oh, this is a lot bigger than my little pea brain was thinking. Inner city trails, flood control, nature trails within the inner city. That wasn't on my radar. So I was intrigued to see what the consultant was put together and would present to us today. Most of the flood control channels, I think, do back up to homes, and that worries me, and it worries you, and rightfully so. When I look at some of the sample pictures provided of the trails on the flood control channels, a couple look nice. If there's a particular channel in Corona that looks like the channel shown in San Dimas or Burbank, then I'd be interested in looking at that and seeing if that would be something that we could do. Obviously, if it wasn't behind somebody's homes, those pictures, I didn't see homes on those two examples, so that might be a good idea. I was looking at the channel that runs from Magnolia, All-American Asphalt area, all the way to Lincoln. It doesn't go through residential neighborhoods. And while I wouldn't consider that a trail or something that I would particularly want to walk, it would be great to use it for circulation on a bike to get from one part of our city to the other. But that comes with big concerns also. And when it comes to these flood control channels, public access, really my two biggest concerns probably of reality is encampments starting to go up that we can deal with. That's under our purview. We can deal with that. And taggers, graffiti. We've seen what that can be like in our city. And it's a tremendous drain on our code enforcement, on our PD, and we can deal with it, but it's a challenge, and I just don't really feel like adding more challenges. And then, if we open them, park rangers are going to have to unlock the gates every morning, drive it, at the end of the day, drive it, and then lock it. That's going to be a pain in the ass. That's just stupid. And then, so for now, I think I would like to just see us focus on enhancing the trail opportunities that we have at the outer edges of our city. Take some pressure off Skyline. There's so many areas that you can walk in this city that are gorgeous. I also think we need to consider enhancing biking lanes to make it safer for our bicyclists to use the street. There are some scary areas. Trying to get down Green River to get to the Santa Ana River Trail, that's horrible, And so, yeah, we should look into making some of those things safer, but focus primarily on the outskirts of our city. Now, there was an email I got from Paul, we all got it, Paul Freewald. He was part of the Trails Working Group, and, he made some good sense as far as we're looking at the outskirts of our city, do we need to save up a ton of money and then do something big at that location, or can we incrementally add little amenities, little better access perhaps, benches, drinking fountains, whatever, instead of waiting 5 years to get to a particular trail that people are already using. So I hope that makes sense. But yeah, that's it. Good for now.
Thank you, Jim. Chair's rolling away. I have some questions for you, Donna, and the Alta guy, and I always forget your name. I apologize. But I didn't call you dude this time. My first question is for neighbors or for residents or citizens that back up to these river trails, how do you mitigate that they have low fences or people looking into their backyards? What would be your response to that?
Thank you for the question. I'll speak to that specifically and also more generally many of the concerns that were expressed today, in that this is a 30,000-foot plan. Indeed, to another council member's point, the idea is to get ideas onto the piece of paper and then prioritize them for the next phase, which is that specific line on a map, seeing if there's a there. So potentially these are great ideas, but then what happens, right? From a safety perspective, from a homeowner perspective, from a floodwater conveyance perspective, everything else under the sun. So to that specific concern about a homeowner's privacy, we would evaluate the right-of-way. Riverside County Flood Control and Water Management District has a minimum bed width.
Let me stop you right there.
Yes.
Before you go deep into it,
We would build a wall.
Just pretend there's a problem with one of the citizens' houses. What would you do?
We would build a wall, sir.
Okay. All right. Thank you. And then in your experience with these trails, has crime increased when they're built, or has it decreased, or has it remained the same?
I mean, that's societal, and I can't speak to that.
Okay. Fair enough.
That depends on the community, the time of month. It's difficult for me to speak specifically. Same goes with the home ownership, right? I believe that many folks could pull statistics in favor of both arguments, and it's quite challenging to articulate specifically for City of Corona.
I appreciate the honesty, and I'll tell you why I'm asking these questions is because I've gotten a lot of emails, and I've also been playing with Google on this, and I see people on Google that just love these trails, right? And I've seen homeowners that say it improved the look of what was in our backyard. And the quite honest truth is our city's never done this. We've never built it. So we don't know. We don't know if crime's going to increase. We don't know if the homeless population is going to start moving in. We don't know if graffiti is going to be a problem. But I don't want to vote on it being a problem or homeless moving in or so forth. I would rather flush out the problems now than later, right? So that's why I'm asking. I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but I am curious what the answers are, because honestly, I don't think anybody in this room knows. But I believe everybody in this room wants to protect their family, and everybody's gone into mama bear mode, including myself. And so you start asking questions and you start piecing it all together, right? So that's my thought process. I too would like to make a motion, and it's should the city decide to go forward with these trails, I know right now it's at a 30,000-foot view, but should the city want to proceed forward to go with these trails, that each trail be looked at individually and not collectively. So before you build a trail, it comes to the city council, it comes to the Parks and Rec Commission, there's plenty of notice for citizens to speak, and it's flushed out, right? And then a decision is made on one particular trail, not all the trails. And then I would like to make, along with that motion, I've learned in the past that flood control hasn't always given permission for the city to move the homeless out. So before we go forward with any of that, I think it's important that we get our ducks in a row, that flood control needs to give the city homeless enforcement So when it does become a problem, we're not relying on flood control, we're relying on our people to take care of it.
Yeah.
Go ahead,
Mr.
Justin.
Tucker. Yeah. So related to maintenance and safety and other concerns along the flood control channel, particularly for the unhoused, as I described, when we had a Trails Working Group meeting with Riverside County Flood Control, we went through the mechanism of how the city assumes management responsibilities, both for maintenance as well as enforcement, locking the gates, as you mentioned, all that sort of stuff. So that's where that would be borne out, is in that conversation for the specific trail, whichever one that it is, with the Riverside County Flood Control District.
So they are okay with the city doing homeless
Well,
enforcement?
I wouldn't speak on their behalf. What they articulated to us is that those sorts of questions and concerns would be addressed during that collaboration with the Flood Control District.
Can I speak to that really quickly? So when we create a trail system like this, we would propose these trails to the Flood Control District. They would have to enter negotiations with us, and we would agree to assume responsibility for those trails. So that would include opening it, like securing the trail, but that would also allow our law enforcement officers to go and patrol those areas where they're not currently allowed to do. So in that negotiation process, some of the other concerns about security would be resolved. The other things that can be mitigated in this is that we can change the zoning within those areas to allow backyard walls to be built higher. So instead of being capped at 5 feet, they could be capped at 6 feet, and that would be part of a zoning change. So once we have these on the map, then we can propose those to Riverside County Flood Control, and then they would negotiate with us what those requirements would be for us to assume liability and responsibility for those areas.
Who would bear the cost of rebuilding walls? Would that be the city or the homeowners?
Well, that could come out in the funding source, sir.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, I want to be really careful about the hypotheticals because, again, this is very sensitive, and we've got folks here who are alarmed by a letter that was not official communication from the city. And the plan does not actually say that these channels are being developed into.
It says we're going to develop a policy to pursue them.
Correct.
And so, which is why I invited these people here to offer their opinion.
Yes.
And I'm sorry you didn't read the letter.
I did read it.
The letter did not take a position one way
I
or
did
the other.
read
It
it.
just said there was a possible trail to come and share.
And I'm
your
glad that
opinion with
folks
the
are
council.
here. I'm glad that folks are
Yeah,
here.
and I'm
We didn't-
really happy,
We didn't,
and I
we
think-
didn't knock on doors of people who don't live in
All
the
right,
flood
let me-
control channel.
let me-
So I don't want us to get
I'm
away
sorry, I
from the
invited-
conversation.
I invited folks to come out and help with me. And
Jackie West, I'm not trying to scare anybody, but I do want to ask questions because they're good find out questions. And I actually believe everybody here wants to know these answers too. So,
I think this is the crazy that we're, as Councilmember Steiner, or Vice Mayor Steiner said, our staff is already stretched. We're gonna have to go and monitor some new area. We already have issues with cleanup. We're spending hundreds of thousands of dollars a year cleaning up homeless encampments and chasing.
Okay.
This is crazy. And then if we're talking about building and privacy is not just fixed by a wall. So if you're in someone's backyard, you're in your backyard, there is a view. So, some of these folks, you're looking at some of these trails, they have a view out their backyard. So they build another 3 or 4 feet on top of their wall.
Wes,
Now they don't get a view either.
if
Come
we're going to
on.
have a conversation, let's have a conversation. I sat and let you watch and ask questions. Is it okay if I ask questions? I'm not saying that we should do this. I'm just saying let's use a logic approach. Let's ask what the problems are going to be and do it. We've already have 3 council members that have said put this on a back burner, so you're safe. But I would still like to know the answers to the questions, right? And I would like everybody to sleep well tonight. That should happen. But I just wanted to know. So, but with that, I'll leave it. I'll back off and ask questions in the future. So, Jacob, where do we go from here?
I think I heard from Jim, I think I actually heard from you as well. There was a couple of motions that were thrown out there, so I just want to make sure we've got clear direction for staff. Vice Mayor Steiner. Vice Mayor Steiner, I believe you wanted us to add in Fresno Canyon Road Trail.
We already have a Fresno Canyon. That's why I think it probably got left out. So we have a Fresno Road, which was by the horse ranch. that I would like us to look into.
I think we talked about that when we were talking about that development there, and there was some ownership issues, but it's something to surely explore.
Yeah, because we have Fresno Canyon, we got Dominguez Ranch, and we have Fresno Road that needs to be looked at.
Fresno Road's a beautiful road.
So looking for direction from the council on if you'd like us to add that in.
Yes.
Second.
Okay. Do we want to vote on that?
Okay, I'm seeing all nods. We'll go with thumbs on that one. It seems like a straightforward one. Okay, thank you so much.
What else you got?
And Mayor, we have that, and I think this is already how we would do it. But you asked that we have a motion, or you make a motion that we come back to the council each year with a particular package of trails for the council to weigh in on before they're built. Those would be CIP projects that the council would review every year when we do our budget. And so I can't anticipate a scenario where we go out and build new trails that the council hasn't been advised on. But if you would like to make that explicit in the plan, we would be happy to call that language out that
I
says.
want the citizens here to know that there will be a lot of notice before anything's done, is what I want. So.
Yeah. Okay, so, and then I don't know if I have another motion other than that. If there's no others, then we are simply looking for direction to move forward, and we'll be bringing this back to the next council meeting for adoption with those
Okay.
amendments made.
All right. Everybody, thank you for coming, participating in local government. Oh. What's that? Well, your husband's lucky he only gets 500 emails a day, but Jacob, can you answer that real quick?
Sure. As Councilmember Casillas mentioned earlier, for anyone that's interested in our parks or trail system or any other items that are going on in the city, do sign up on our webpage to receive notifications. You can also select to be notified about specific issues. Follow us on social media, follow us and get our newsletters. Also, we always encourage you to participate during our budget season, and that's when we go through and talk about individual projects that will be funded in a year. There are many opportunities to participate. We know you're busy, though, and so getting that information pushed out to you in advance so you don't always have to show up to a meeting is, I understand, people's busy lives. But we do encourage you to sign up for those things so that you can be apprised of these in advance.
Mr. Ellis, I really, just really quickly, it may answer your questions. Since this would be a project, wouldn't there be a notification?
The houses, there would be.
If there was a specific trail being built in a specific area of significance, then typically you're going to receive some notification about a project. It depends on the scale of the project, though. Sometimes you could have some enhancements that aren't going to receive it. Residents aren't going to receive a letter mailed to their house about some projects necessarily, so.
I mean, could we adopt that if we're going to establish a new trail, establish a trail that folks get notice within, that are abutting the trail?
You could adopt that as a council policy. It's something to consider. If there's other Q&As, though, staff are going to be in the chamber, so I can see a lot of people have questions. We're going to hang around so that we can answer your questions. So please don't go anywhere until you've had a chance to connect with the team right up front here. We're happy to chat with you.
Okay, with that, meeting's adjourned.